The Waffen SS were created as small elite military units, destined to perform the most amazing feats on the battlefield. During its beginnings, the requirements to access them were so high that only a few men in Germany could pass the entrance tests. Perfect vision and teeth, exceptional physical fitness, a height well above average, a pure and impeccable family tree, and great intellectual capacity were some of the most striking requirements. However, it must be noted that the toughest requirements were only required to be within the small unit that represented the Leibstandarte, which constituted Hitler's personal guard. Thus, for the rest of the units, the requirements were a little more flexible. The Waffen SS, unlike the Wehrmacht, could only recruit men who volunteered at their offices. On the contrary, the regular army had a continuous flow of men who had to go to the army when the time came. While this was not a problem in the early years, because the size and number of units belonging to the Waffen SS was very small, when they grew during the following years, it was a major difficulty that they had to deal with. Following the German invasion of Poland, France, Denmark, and Norway, Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, sought to expand the units of his prestigious Waffen SS, which at the time only consisted of the Leibstandarte, das Reich, Totenkopf, and Polizei. At that time, the German population was around 80 million people. However, after the conquest of these new countries, the Germans had access to another 40 million people, many of them of Germanic ethnicity. Because these men were not required to join the German regular army, Himmler saw in them a great opportunity to increase the size of the Waffen SS. During the summer of 1940, an anti-communist crusade began to grow across Central Europe, leading hundreds of anti-communists from different countries to volunteer to fight against the Soviet Union. In this way, recruitment began during the summer of 1940 and resulted in the creation of two regiments, which would end up forming the Wiking division. The first regiment was the Nordland, with Danish, Norwegian, Swedish, and a minority of Icelandic volunteers, and the second was the Westland regiment with Dutch and Flemish volunteers. The Nordic formation, originally organized as the Nordische Division, was to be made up of Nordic volunteers mixed with German Waffen SS personnel. To this end, the SS Germania Infantry Regiment, which was primarily made up of Germans, was transferred to help form the core of the new division in late 1940. In December 1940, the new SS motorized formation was to be designated SS Division Germania, but after its training period, the name was changed to SS Division Wiking in January 1941. The division was formed around three regiments of motorized infantry, these being the Germania, Westland, and Nordland, with the addition of an artillery regiment. Command of the newly formed division was handed over to Felix Steiner, who had previously led the Deutschland Regiment, which would be one of the pillars of the Das Reich Division. When the Germans finally attacked the Soviet Union in June 1941, a new anti-communist wave spread throughout Europe, which resulted in more volunteers of multiple nationalities wanting to enter combat against the Red Army. In general terms, the Waffen SS stayed with those volunteers of Germanic origin, among whom the Norwegians, Danes, and Dutch stand out, and left the Spanish, French, and Croatians for the regular army. In any case, it must be noted that at this time of the war, the number of foreigners in the Waffen SS was still minuscule. It was mainly from 1942 and 1943, at which time the war began to become quite complicated for Germany, when a whole series of Waffen SS divisions formed by foreign soldiers began to emerge. The SS Prinz Eugen Division with number 7 was formed in mid-1942 with volunteers of German blood from Serbia and Croatia. The SS Florian Geyer Division with number 8 was also formed in mid-1942 with volunteers mainly from Serbia, Romania, and Hungary. The SS Nordland Division, number 11, was created during the summer of 1943 with a series of Norwegian volunteers and the remains of other disbanded units. Another unit formed in 1943 was the SS Handschar Division, number 13, which was created with Muslim volunteers from Croatia and Bosnia. And finally, We have a very characteristic unit such as the SS Galician Division, composed of Ukrainian and later also Slovak volunteer soldiers. To all these units, we can add up to 20 more divisions of the Waffen SS that were created during the following months. In total, it is estimated that between 350,000 and 500,000 non-German men fought within the Waffen SS, among which those of the following nationalities stand out. Denmark contributed about 6,000 soldiers to the Waffen SS. Albania contributed about 7,000 men. A total of 8,000 troops arrived from Norway and nearly 15,000 men from Italy. The next country that contributed the most soldiers to the German cause was Belgium with about 18,000, followed closely by France, Estonia, and Hungary, which contributed 20,000 men each. From Holland, 25,000 Dutchmen volunteered for the Waffen SS, and the Romanians sent another 50,000. Finally, the country that contributed the most soldiers to the Black Order was Latvia, with a total of 80,000 troops. Symbolically, there were between 1,800 and 3,000 Finnish volunteers in the Waffen SS and about 2,000 men from India. Having seen the number of foreigners who were part of the Waffen SS, let us now ask ourselves what were the three main reasons for this circumstance. Firstly, and as an initial reason, we have the great difficulty that the Waffen SS had in recruiting soldiers because they did not have an assigned quota of replacements. This led them to accept volunteers from other countries such as Holland, Belgium, Denmark, or Norway, who shared their same ancestors. However, when 2 years later the war began to get complicated, the requirements to enter the Waffen SS were lowered more and more until practically everyone was accepted into the new divisions formed by foreigners. To tell the truth, there were so many foreign volunteers that even more divisions could have been created, but the Germans did not have enough officers and non-commissioned officers to staff more units than were made. During the summer of 1943 and 1944, the phase of greatest creation of Waffen SS units took place for the other two reasons that we will explain below. The first of them, which would be number 2 on the list, is simply that soldiers were needed to shore up the different fronts on which Germany was being attacked. Although these divisions that we have named previously were not the elite units that formed the Leibstandarte, Das Reich, Totenkopf, Wiking, and other similar divisions, they did serve to confront Germany's enemies. And finally, reason number 3 was that these foreign fighters increased the ties between their countries of origin and Germany, since after 1943, they all began to be threatened by the Soviet Union. Although their years under German domination were not very good for them, it was clear that they did not have a better future under the Soviet control that Stalin had prepared for them. In summary, all these interrelated reasons meant that in the Waffen SS there were soldiers of so many nationalities, races, and religions who fought under the same flag, mainly against the communism that the Soviet Union represented. So, would you like to know more about the rise and fall of the Waffen SS? I leave you the program that we recently uploaded on the topic with Carlos Caballero Jurado in the description.